Most people do not know what to do with someone who is comfortable alone. They see a person eating without company, walking without anyone beside them, spending a quiet weekend without needing to fill every hour, and a story begins to form in their minds. Something must be wrong. This person must be lonely, hard to reach, or quietly missing the kind of life everyone else seems to be chasing. But solitude is not always a sign that someone has been left out of the world. Sometimes it is a sign that their inner world has become strong enough to hold them. There is one kind of being alone that feels like exile, where silence turns heavy and every empty space reminds you of what is missing. But there is another. When the room grows quiet, something inside you finally begins to breathe. You are no longer adjusting your face, your voice, or your energy to fit the people around you. You do not have to answer quickly. You do not have to explain yourself before you understand yourself. For the first time in a while, your mind has enough space to move at its own pace. And if you naturally do the 6 things in this video alone, without being forced, without trying to look mysterious, and without needing anyone to understand it, then your intelligence may be rarer than you think. Not because you are better than people who love company, but because your mind has learned how to work without constant noise around it. This is not only the intelligence measured by grades, degrees, or quick answers. It is the quieter kind, the kind that appears in the way you think before reacting, feel before explaining, decide without needing a crowd, and understand yourself when nobody is watching. So if you have ever felt guilty for needing time alone, you can comment "quiet mind" below. Not to explain yourself, not to defend your personality, just as a quiet reminder that being alone does not mean something is wrong with you. Sometimes, it means something inside you is listening more carefully than most people ever do. Before we talk about the 6 things, there is something important to understand. Solitude does not mean the same thing for everyone. For some people, being alone brings them too close to thoughts they usually avoid. They reach for noise, conversation, entertainment, or constant movement because silence makes the inner world impossible to ignore. But for other people, silence does not feel empty. It feels useful. It gives the mind enough room to untangle what would stay crowded in the middle of other people's voices. This does not mean they hate people or believe they do not need connection. It means their mind has learned how to function without being constantly fed by the outside world. And that is rare. Many people only recognize themselves through reaction. They know what is funny when a group laughs. They know what is acceptable when others approve. They know what to want because the world keeps handing them the next thing to chase. But a person who can enter solitude without falling apart has already built a different relationship with their own mind. They can hear a thought before it gets edited for approval. They can feel an emotion before turning it into performance. They can sense what they truly want before other people's expectations cover it. This is why solitude can be a signal, not a signal of superiority, a signal of inner independence. Because intelligence is not only the ability to solve problems quickly, sometimes it is the ability to sit with a difficult thought without running from it. It is the quiet awareness that notices what is happening inside before it spills out as anger, anxiety, or approval seeking. And sometimes it is simply the ability to be alone and still feel whole. That kind of intelligence does not announce itself loudly. It grows in private. And the first sign is this. Number 1, you think through problems alone before asking anyone. Some people meet uncertainty and immediately look outward. Before they have even sat with the question, they are already asking for opinions, reassurance, and someone else's interpretation of what they should do. There is nothing wrong with asking for help, but your instinct is different. You give your own mind the first conversation. You stay with the problem long enough for the first wave of frustration to pass. You let the question turn over in your head. You notice the obvious answer, then wait for the deeper one. And somewhere in that quiet process, you begin to separate fear from fact, impulse from judgment, and pressure from truth. That is rare because most people are uncomfortable with not knowing. They want certainty quickly, but when you stay with a problem alone, you train your mind to trust itself under uncertainty. Psychologists call this an internal locus of control, the habit of trusting your own reasoning before borrowing someone else's. It does not make you perfect. It makes you less dependent on borrowed certainty. Over time, that matters. Because a mind that can think before asking becomes harder to manipulate, harder to rush, and harder to pull away from what it already knows is true. Number 2, you process emotions alone, quietly and seriously. This is very different from shutting down. Some people go silent because they are avoiding what they feel. They disappear into distraction, pretend nothing happened, and hope time will bury what they do not want to face. But others go quiet because they are actually doing the work. They sit with the feeling long enough for it to become honest. Some people only know they feel bad. Others can tell the difference between disappointment, shame, loneliness, resentment, grief, relief, or the strange mix of emotions that comes when something hurts but also sets them free. Psychologists call that emotional granularity. It means your emotional world is not just noise. It has texture, shape, and names. And the more clearly you can name what you feel, the less blindly it controls you. That is why processing emotions alone can become a rare kind of intelligence. You are not rushing to explain the feeling before you understand it. You are not turning pain into a performance just to make someone else respond. You are giving the feeling enough silence to reveal what it really is. Many people react before they reflect. They try to win the conversation before they know what actually got touched inside them. But when you can sit alone with your emotional world, you become less controlled by it. Not because you feel less, but because you understand more. Number 3, you have solo rituals nobody knows about. Maybe it looks ordinary from the outside. A walk you take when your mind feels crowded, a playlist you return to when you need to feel like yourself again, a slow cup of coffee before the day begins, a few quiet minutes before the world starts asking things from you. No one assigned these rituals to you. No one is watching. You do not do them for praise. You do them because some part of you knows they bring you back to center. That is more meaningful than it looks. A solo ritual is a small structure built around your inner life. It is your way of saying, I know what helps me return to myself. That is a form of self-authorship. Instead of waiting for the outside world to tell you how to reset, you create signals that belong to you. Many people never learn this. They rely on noise to know what mood they are in, on other people to tell them what matters, on constant stimulation to keep silence from getting too close. But your rituals become a private language between you and your own mind. Over time, they build stability. And this is where many intelligent people are misunderstood. The world often treats solitude like something suspicious. If you enjoy your own company, people may call you distant. If you need time to think, they may say you are overthinking. If you choose one quiet evening over 5 shallow conversations, they may assume you are missing out. Hear that enough, and you may begin to feel guilty for the very thing that keeps you sane. So you start overriding your own rhythm. You stay longer than you want to. You say yes when your mind is asking for quiet. You act more available, more social, more easygoing than you actually feel, just to avoid seeming strange. But something important gets lost when you do that. You lose trust in your own rhythm. You begin to treat your own nature like an inconvenience. And that is dangerous because a person who loses their relationship with their own mind becomes easier for the world to shape. Your solitude is not something you always need to justify. Sometimes it is the place where your intelligence repairs itself. Number 4, you make big decisions without needing consensus. You may ask for information, listen to advice, and respect people who have more experience than you. But when the decision truly matters, you eventually have to step away from the noise and make the call from a place only you can reach. Whether it is a job, a relationship, a move, a difficult conversation, or a new direction, you do not need 5 people to approve your choice before you allow yourself to trust it. This does not mean you are stubborn. It means you understand the difference between input and instruction. Other people's opinions can be useful. They can offer perspective, reveal blind spots, and help you see what emotion may be hiding from you. But they are not your answer. That distinction is rarer than it sounds. Human beings are deeply social. When we feel uncertain, we naturally look around to see what everyone else is doing. That instinct can protect us, but it can also trap us. Because if you always choose what the group understands, you may slowly build a life that looks acceptable to everyone except you. Intelligent solitude teaches you to pause before copying the crowd. It gives you enough distance to ask, is this actually true for me, or is it just easier to explain? That question can change the direction of a life. Number 5, you enjoy your own company without needing to justify it. Not simply tolerate it, enjoy it. There is a version of being alone that feels like exile, where silence becomes proof that something is missing. But there is another version, where the quiet feels full, where you can move at your own pace, think without translating yourself, and feel like yourself without performing a version of yourself for anyone. That is self-companionship. And it is one of the most underrated forms of emotional strength. A person who enjoys their own company still needs connection, love, and people who see them clearly. But they do not collapse the moment they are alone. They do not treat silence as proof that they are unwanted. They do not need constant attention to feel real. Many people know how to be liked, busy, and visible, but they do not know how to simply be with themselves. If you can do that, your intelligence is not only in your thoughts, it is in your relationship with your own presence. Number 6, you reflect on your own behavior without being asked. This may be the most revealing sign. When everything gets quiet, you sometimes return to a moment from earlier in the day, a conversation that stayed with you, a reaction that felt too sharp, a sentence you said too quickly, a feeling you could not explain at the time but now refuses to leave. And instead of waiting for someone to call you out, you begin asking yourself what was really happening. Why did that bother me so much? What was I trying to protect? Was I being honest, or was I defending an old wound? What would I do differently if I had the chance? No one forces you to do this. There is no applause for it. You do it because some part of you wants to understand yourself before life has to teach the lesson more painfully. Most people only reflect when consequences corner them, when a relationship is already damaged, when someone finally confronts them, when a pattern becomes too obvious to ignore. But unprompted self-reflection is different. It means your conscience is not only activated by outside pressure, it is alive from within. This does not mean you are always right, or that you never hurt people, or that you have everything figured out. It means you are in conversation with yourself. And that conversation is one of the foundations of real maturity. A person who can reflect without being forced can grow before life has to break them open. They notice patterns earlier. They apologize with more honesty. They adjust before pride turns a small mistake into a repeating pattern. Most people change because life forces them to. Some people change because they notice themselves first. That is a quiet kind of intelligence. Nobody celebrates it loudly. Nobody gives you a trophy for thinking deeply alone, processing your emotions privately, keeping small rituals, making decisions without crowd approval, enjoying your own company, or reflecting when no one asked you to. But these things shape a person in ways that cannot be faked. They build a mind that trusts itself, a self that does not shatter every time the world gets loud. A kind of intelligence measured not only by what you know, but by how deeply you know yourself. So if you do these 6 things alone, do not rush to call it weird. Do not shrink it to seem more normal. Do not let people who fear silence convince you that solitude is a flaw. Your inner world is not empty. It is working. And if this video gave words to something you have always felt but rarely explained, subscribe to Cortex Psychology for more deep psychology videos about self-awareness, emotional intelligence, solitude, and the hidden patterns of the mind. Because being alone does not always mean you are missing something. Sometimes it means you are finally close enough to hear yourself.